Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to be talking to Kaya Jones here in just a moment. She contacted us and she said she was very concerned that as we see Easter approaching, there really hasn't been much discussion about the attacks that happened last Sunday, on Palm Sunday in Egypt. And I agree with her. I think that's absolutely true. I covered it on the nightly news, but we've had the issues with Syria and other politics have really swamped this. I think it's very interesting how selective the media is in terms of what they try to focus on. We don't see pictures of people dying in these Egyptian churches. We just see the pictures that they want us to see of the people who are dying in the specific areas that they want to attack. And we have to understand how big this problem is. In Egypt, the Christian population is about 6 to 18%. It's a very wide range because it's difficult to get accurate figures. Why is it difficult to get accurate figures? Because they have to do it in hiding. And let me give you an example of this. There's an article on Breitbart today talking about how one of these Coptic Orthodox dioceses in Minya has had to cancel Easter celebrations because of the threats, the violence, but also over the mourning of all the attacks that happened there. And I think it's interesting when we look at this, they say, of course, this has been going on for quite some time. They've had 28 people now have been arrested for ties to the planning and the financing of these attacks. It's very widespread persecution that's going on here. They say that this particular bombing that happened in Alexandria, the guy, as he was passing through the metal detector, you can see that just as I'm talking about that right there on the monitor. They have a metal detector set up to try to protect them from the terrorists who want to kill people in the churches. And so what does he do? And we've said this about the TSA metal detectors, how ineffective that is. You mass people together. There wasn't a big crowd of people at that metal detector at that moment, not as big as it would have been in an airport, but still killed a lot of people, blew himself up as he was going through the metal detector. But here, you know, we talk about how many people there are that are Christians in Egypt. Here's one of the reasons why it's not easy to get a number on that. They point out that in a lot of the villages where they are afraid to actually have a building, a church where people can go, they have to keep a very low profile. And what they do is they go to a wall and they draw a cross on it, they hold their ceremonies, and then they run away. That's persecution. And that's what we need to remember this Easter as we're safely in our churches. And think about the fact, folks, that this can come to America if we don't wake up to what is happening with this massive migration. We create wars in Syria. We create regime changes in Syria, which creates chaos, war, and terrorism in those areas. And then we say we've got a refugee crisis that we created with our regime change policies, and we have to bring those people in. We have to import that chaos. We have to import that terrorism. That's the grand strategy. We need to wake up to that and cut it off at the source. Regime change. We've seen it happen in Libya, and it's about to happen again in Syria. Now I want to go to Kaya Jones. She began her music career at a very young age as a classically trained violinist. She is one of the founding members of one of the most popular girl groups in history, the Pussycat Dolls. That was 2003 to 2005. She has had a very successful recording career since then. You can find her at kayajones.com. Welcome, Kaya.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us your concerns about what's going on. You contacted us and said, this is something we really need to talk about, and we agree. We need to talk about what's going on in Egypt, especially this weekend. As you heard me say, they have had to cancel Easter services in one jurisdiction, and the other people are having to basically hide to even get together to worship.
hmm Well, you know, this is an attack against the cross. Everyone needs to understand that. This is not an attack on just Christians. It's our doctrine, it's our belief in a whole being attacked. And so it's scary to watch the news continuously say things about our president, say things about what's going on in the world. And, you know, 2 minutes is shown of what's happening to Christians in Egypt. And it was just, you know, passed over. Luckily, Andre Soriano, who designed the Make America Great Again dress for Joy, he sent all of us this incredible video that was the truth of what happened inside of the church that killed 47. They're not sure if it's 45 or 47 from all the different reports.
Wow.
And it was someone then taking their phone because, you know, the feed had been cut. And now taking their phone saying, you need to see this.
Wow.
And how could you not respond? In that moment, to me, it was very clear that this is something's wrong when, we're talking about a murderous mother in America who gets off, out of her sentence and now has a reality show is the key topic. And we're barely talking about Christians and what's going on, and that this is against our doctrine. This is not just Christians. This is the cross.
I think that's a very important point. You start out by saying this is an attack on the cross because Muslims
Well, they
see
said it,
Jesus
right?
as a prophet. And so they say, we honor Jesus and so forth and so on. What they hate is the cross. They hate
That's
what
right.
we celebrate here on Good Friday and on
That's
Easter
right.
Sunday, the fact that Jesus died and was raised again on the third day. That is the offense to them. And so
Yeah.
that is why they are focusing on this particular time, especially. Now, this is not something that they only did. They did this again at Christmas. We had in the same general area in Egypt, they had about 30 people that were killed in an attack in the Sinai Peninsula. They've had hundreds of Christians have to flee for safety out of that area. And of course, there were 2 attacks that happened on Palm Sunday, but that's the core thing. They focus on these holidays that celebrate aspects of Jesus's life that they don't like, the doctrine that they don't like. So that's when they go out and kill people over doctrine. And that's what we have to understand, what is at the basis of this. And the other part of this is the fact that, as General Flynn has pointed out, this is not just a religious persecution. This is also a political and legal system. All of it is tied together. Everybody, all these liberals who hate any possible tie of church and state in our country, they're perfectly fine with mosque and state. And that's the amazing thing that really makes my head spin. The fact that they would embrace people like the LGBT community and then embrace this religion that throws them off the roofs. They would hate anything that smacks of religious expression in Christianity, but then they would embrace the people that Hillary Clinton had speak for her. I always called him Sharia Khan. I don't even remember his real name anymore, but the guy that she had introduce her is a guy who has been an advocate of Sharia law. It is a legal and political system. It is not just a doctrine. And they will kill
Yeah.
you if they don't agree with your doctrine, but it is also
Yeah.
a legal system.
Yeah, I mean, the LGBT community is very near and dear to my heart. I've done so much work with them, and I don't think I would have much of a career if it hadn't been for the support I've received from them. At the same time, all religion has offended or hurt or said things to the gay community. And so that's kind of their stance, is it's all in one. And I've had these discussions with many of my gay friends that have said, but it's all in one. And I'm like, well, look, there are concentration camps going on right now, rounding up gay men. And what will be next? Gay women, gay sympathizers, Christians. I mean, Hitler didn't just start with, the Jews in Germany. That was where he began, but that's not where he ended. So where does it end? Where does it really end? And that's going on right now, and people don't even know about it.
When you look at what's going on in Christianity, take the Westboro Baptist, for example, that is a microscopic fringe group that doesn't represent mainstream Christianity. Christians reject that. That is not Christian doctrine. They have absolutely no power. And yet, they don't have a problem with Saudi Arabia, where the government has religious police, where they are enacting Sharia punishment against LGBT people. They're our allies. And at the same time, we're told that we need to embrace Islam. I just don't get the doublethink that's going on there.
Oh, there's a lot of doublethink. I think the key thing is we have to keep talking about what's going on. In Chechnya, there are concentration camps going on right now. And that's what's happening to the gay community there. People need to understand this. People need to also know what's going on to Christians around the globe, or to anyone that is not okay with the faith that is coming against us. And I have a lot of Muslim friends. At this point, I ask, you need to speak up and speak out. If you're not okay with what's going on, if this is really the religion of peace, then you need to speak. We need to start talking, because what it's looking like is a bunch of people not speaking on what's going on, and also genociding their own people.
Yeah.
So it is crucial that we keep speaking on about it. It is crucial that we keep discussing and that we don't just shut the door on this narrative. This has been going on for a long time. Coptic Christians are so important to our doctrine. They were created in 42 AD. So this is 42 years after Christ. This is something that is important for us to understand. This is the beginning, and they're being demolished.
Yes, yes,
And
and we can see
and
that as we look at the other ancient areas. You go through the Bible and you look at
yeah,
all the different churches that
yeah.
Paul wrote to. They had very strong Christian populations. They're all Muslim now, and every trace of that culture, that civilization, those people has been eradicated. And that is what is really going on in Egypt. Islam is the essence of intolerance. And that's why, again, I get back to this double think. How can these people preach tolerance and yet embrace the most intolerant of religions, where everywhere that it has gone, they have eradicated everything. They shot up the face of the Sphinx because they don't like statues. I mean, it's not just Christian culture, it's every other culture. If they don't like the symbols, they destroy them, and then they build on top of them. One of the things I think that's interesting, Kaya, is a story from Breitbart that came out earlier in the week. And it was about a cartoon artist that worked at Marvel Comics,
Yeah.
and he started interjecting Islamic references, but also political references. I think that's the key thing. This Indonesian comic artist, it was a new comic series called X-Men Gold, and he featured a reference to the Quran that urges Muslims not to take Christians and Jews as allies. Whoever is an ally to them, the verse says, who among you, then indeed he is one of them. So in other words, you're with us or you're against us. And then as part of this, he also put up a protest against a political opponent who referred to the verse. Many Muslims saw this as an act of blasphemy because he pushed back against that. So they started these demonstrations on the 2nd of December last year. And so the number 212 has now become a symbol of political opposition to a guy in Indonesia who is actually tolerant of other religions. So now they want to get him out of office. They want him prosecuted for blasphemy in Indonesia. And he put these symbols inside a Marvel comic. Now, Marvel said, we don't have anything to do with it. They don't reflect the views of the writer, the editors, or anyone here. But then he got onto social media and started to confirm it. One of his other writers said, well, that's it, pal,
Isn't that
you're
amazing
done.
how social media works,
Yeah,
right?
so we know
Yeah.
that that's what he was doing. They caught him on it. They distanced themselves from it. But that's the subtlety with which they use this. It's in comic books, it's in your entertainment, and it's in politics. And when you push back against it, even if it's somebody that introduces Hillary Clinton, who is a proponent of Sharia law, we're told it's intolerant if we point that out.
Yeah, no, it's not intolerant. We need to know as Christians and as Jews or as anyone who's a non-denomination that believes in and above, you can connect with God anywhere, any place. They can attack our churches, and we can connect with God anytime and any place. So they can have this, this ideology to come against everything, if you will, anything that's of art or religion or freedom. And that to me is a very strong ideology. And we need to be careful with sympathizing with this, because this is not something that you can sympathize with. You cannot sympathize with anyone that is thinking it's okay to go into a holy space. I might not believe in other religions because I am Christian, but I will tell you this. You do not denounce, you do not go into a church, a synagogue, a temple, or a mosque and cause problems. That is just, at what point have we crossed the line? And there is a line, and it has been crossed. And when are we going to do something about it and say something about it and start to show your crosses, start to wear them? If everyone's happy and
Well, there was
excited
just an
about wearing
incident.
the hijab,
Yeah.
we should be happy, as I am, to sport my cross, as we all should. If they're
This
okay
week,
with sporting the hijab, we should do the same.
absolutely. This week, Kaya, you probably are familiar with this. In Australia, there was a young man who, and again, I think he was Greek Orthodox. He had a large cross, which is what they wear. And he was attacked in Australia at a public train station, subway station, something like that, by a gang of Muslim individuals who beat him, who removed his cross. His girlfriend tried to intervene. Two Muslim girls attacked her. And the most interesting thing about this, I think, is the fact that there were, I believe, 5 uniformed officers there on the platform who stood by and did nothing. And when people complained about that, they said, that's not my job, man. I'm here to stop people who are jumping over the turnstiles because they didn't pay $1 to ride the subway or something. I'm not going to help anybody.
Job either. It's not your job or my job either to speak out on certain issues. I'm a singer. I also own a record company. I'm a performer. I came out in support of Trump, but at this point, it doesn't matter whether you're a singer, you sweep the street, or you're a police officer. We need to know what's right and wrong. And right now, what's going on in the world is wrong. We cannot have this continue. It starts in one space and it moves. Had we stayed in the Middle East and not just pulled out, we would not have been in this situation where ISIS is now spread everywhere. I mean, I wish Trump had come along sooner because I was so happy when I saw what he did. I was so happy.
Yeah, I just hope that he doesn't, one of the things that's going on in Syria, of course, is Assad is one of the most secular governments that we've had there. There's been less persecution of Christians in that country before ISIS came in. There was less persecution there than anywhere else. And what I'm concerned about is that this is going to degenerate into a situation like we've had even in other places where the U.S. government has gone in, other countries where there used to be a Christian population. After our involvement, that went down to essentially zero. I hope that doesn't happen in Syria as well. I think the takeaway that we have to come away with this is that we don't turn into the picture of what we saw with these uniformed people on the platform. No. We have to do something. And so what can we do? We're not always there when somebody is being attacked. But we can show exactly what you're doing, what you're talking about. And the video that you're talking about, has that been passed around on social media, or was that shut down? Did they allow that to be passed around?
I passed it. It's actually on my page. I'll repost it if you'd like, and I'll attach you guys as well. I think the world needs to see it. I know you can't see it and unsee it,
Give us your social media. Give us your page where it is.
Kaya Jones, at Kaya Jones, at Twitter, at Kaya Jones, on my Instagram, Kaya's Music on Facebook, and Kaya's KayaTube on YouTube, or you can go to kayajones.com and they have it all there.
That's very important. That's something that people can do to stand with those who are being persecuted, who have to worship and hide, run and hide, who have to shut down their celebrations. That's something that you can do. Very important to do that. Thank you so much for talking to us, Kaya Jones.
Thank you for having me. Happy Good Friday.
Thank you. You too. KayaJones.com, and you can find her at Kaya Jones on Twitter to get that video. We'll be right back.
In ancient times, man roamed the earth in a constant state of hunting or being hunted. Introducing Caveman, where cutting-edge science meets ancient super nutrients. Secure your bottle right now at InfoWarsStore.com.